Do you regard black magic as being purely fictitious, or is there some truth in it?
Some truth. 100% truth. There is nothing fictitious about black magic, in any way whatever. It is a fact. It is a fact which has existed for several thousand years. I mean, when we talk about black magic, we are talking about Satanism, necromancy, alchemy, witchcraft, the worship of Satan.
Sure. You know, and it's a big culture of mind control, too. MK Ultra mind control rules in Hollywood. If you don't know, Google that and look into it.
Okay, welcome back, people. Today we are going to be talking about Monarch programming and MK Ultra. This is one of those topics that I first got into when I was studying people such as Phil Valentine, Jordan Maxwell, and Fritz Springmeier. And over the years, I've kind of just seen these ideas develop and play out in front of my eyes. So, without a shadow of a doubt, I thought that I needed to do a little video on this one. Now, Monarch programming is a mind control technique comprising elements of satanic ritual abuse and multiple personality disorder. It utilizes a combination of psychology, neuroscience, and occult rituals to create within the slaves an alter persona that can be triggered and programmed by the handlers. Monarch slaves are used by several organizations connected with the world elite in fields such as military, sex slavery, and the entertainment industry. And this video will basically look at the origins of Monarch programming, its techniques, symbolism, and how it's manifested today. Okay, now throughout the course of history, several accounts have been recorded describing rituals and practices resembling mind control. One of the earliest writings giving reference to the use of occultism to manipulate the mind could be found in the Egyptian Book of the Dead. The Egyptian Book of the Dead is a compilation of rituals heavily studied by today's secret societies, which describes method of torture and intimidation, the use of potions, drugs, and the casting of spells, ultimately resulting in the total enslavement of the initiate. Other events ascribed to black magic, sorcery, and demon possession, where the victim is animated by an outside force. These are all the ancestors of Monarch programming. It is, however, during the 20th century that mind control became a science, in the modern sense of the term, where thousands of subjects have been systematically observed, documented, and experimented upon. Now, one of the first methodological studies on trauma-based mind control was conducted by Joseph Mengele himself, a physician working in the Nazi concentration camps. He initially gained notoriety for being one of the SS physicians who supervised selections of the arriving prisoners, determining who was to be killed and who was to be forced to become a labourer. However, Mengele is most known for his grisly human experiments on concentration inmates, including children, for which he gained the nickname the Angel of Death. And I'm going to read a quote here by Ken Adachi. Dr. Joseph Mengele of Auschwitz notoriety was the principal developer of the trauma-based Monarch project and the CIA's MK Ultra mind control programs. Mengele and approximately 5,000 other high-ranking Nazis were secretly moved into the United States and South America in the aftermath of World War II in an operation designated Paperclip. The Nazis continued their work in developing mind control and rocketry technologies in secret under Terry Miller ground bases. The killers, torturers, and mutilators of innocent human beings were kept discreetly out of sight, but busy in US underground military facilities, which gradually became home to thousands upon thousands of kidnapped American children snatched off the street and placed into iron bar cages stacked from floor to ceiling as part of their training. These children would be used to further refine and perfect Mengele's mind control technologies. Certain selected children would become future mind-controlled slaves who could be used for thousands of different jobs ranging anywhere from sexual slavery to assassination. A substantial portion of these children, who were considered expendable, were intentionally slaughtered in front of and by other children in order to traumatize the selected trainee into total compliance and submission. As you can see here, this is by Ken Adachi and it is from The Ultimate Terror. Mind Control, The Ultimate Terror. He says regarding Dr. Mengele, the most significant programmer, perhaps one could give him the title of the father of Monarch programming, was Joseph Mengele, an ex-Nazi concentration camp doctor. Thousands of Monarch mind-controlled slaves in the US had Dr. Green as their chief programmer. Now, the research conducted by Mengele served as the foundation for the covert illegal CIA operation that we now know to be called MK Ultra through these declassified documents. Project MK Ultra ran from the early 1950s to at least the late 1960s, using American and Canadian citizens as test subjects. The published evidence indicates that Project MK Ultra involved the use of many methodologies to manipulate individual mental states and alter brain functions, including the surreptitious administration of drugs and other chemicals, sensory deprivation, isolation, and verbal and physical abuse. The most publicized experiments conducted by MK Ultra involved the administration of LSD on unwitting human subjects, including CIA employees, military personnel, doctors, other government agents, prostitutes, mentally ill patients, and members of the general public in order to study their reactions. However, the scope of MK Ultra does not, however, stop. Experiments involving violent electroshocks, physical and mental torture and abuse were used in a systematic manner on many subjects, including children. And as you can see here, there is this just fucking awful picture of this poor little kid. This is a declassified picture from the MK Ultra experiments that they were doing. This is clearly a subject. Although the admitted goals of the projects were to develop torture and interrogation methods to use on the country's enemies, some historians asserted that the project aimed to create Manchurian candidates, programmed to perform various acts such as assassinations and other covert missions. MK Ultra was brought to light by various commissions in the 1970s, including the Rockefeller Commission, which I find highly, highly interesting. Although it's claimed that the CIA stopped such experiments after these commissions, some whistleblowers have come forth stating that the project simply went underground, and Monarch programming has become the classified successor of MK Ultra. And if the Rockefeller Commission had a hand in making this research go underground, you can damn sure bet your bottom fucking dollar that they've still got a hand in it today. Otherwise, they wouldn't have piped up in the first place. We have another quote by Dr. Lacter in the book The Relationship Between Mind Control Programming and Ritual Abuse. Trauma-based mind control programming can be defined as systematic torture that blocks the victim's capacity for conscious processing through pain, terror, drugs, illusion, sensory deprivation, and all the other things that I mentioned there, and then employs suggestion and or classical or operant conditioning to implement thoughts, directives, and perceptions in the unconscious mind, often in newly formed, trauma-induced, disassociated identities that force the victim to do, feel, think, or perceive things for the purpose of the programmer. The objective is for the victim to follow directives with no conscious awareness, including execution of acts in clear violation of the victim's moral principles. Installation of mind control programming relies on the victim's capacity to disassociate, which permits the creation of new walled-off personalities to hold and hide programming. Already disassociative children are prime candidates for programming. Here's another quote here. I will cite all of these so you can go and read about them yourself. All these quotes down here, they'll be in the description. What can I say now? I believe that ritual abuse programming is widespread, is systematic, is very organised from highly esoteric information which is published nowhere, has not been in any book or any talk show, that we have found it all around this country and at least one foreign country. People say, what is the purpose of it? My best guess is that the purpose of it is to create an army of Manchurian candidates, tens of thousands of mental robots who will do prostitution, do movies, smuggle narcotics, engage in international arms smuggling, all sorts of very lucrative things, and do their bidding, or eventually the megalomaniacs at the top believe they'll create a satanic order that will rule the world. That seems about fucking right, doesn't it? What a description. Okay, so what have we got here? We've got this Monarch program, which was essentially created by the Angel of Death, Dr. Joseph Mengele, and his human research experiments. We know that following the war, World War II that is, Operation Paperclip was implemented, and the USA secretly brought over many Nazi scientists. Because the Nazi scientists, yes, they were absolute evil and sick in the fucking head, but they clearly were very good at what they were doing, and the USA was like, yeah, give me some of that, we need to see that, of course. So Mengele's work was adopted into these CIA programs, these covert black budget programs that we don't know about, and it was then taken further and I believe implemented into Hollywood, as we're going to discuss further later on in this video. So basically, the CIA was formed a few years after Paperclip. Essentially, what people believe is that if there was no Paperclip, there would be no CIA. USA would have never gone to the moon, because the secret space program that the German Nazis had with Werner von Braun was actually adopted straight into the American sciences, and that was how they supposedly beat Russia in the space race, which I don't believe in the moon landing at all. I think Kubrick was, I think he was killed for trying to leak that whole shit was fake, but again, that's for a different time and a different story. But Operation Paperclip, Monarch programming, MK Ultra, the CIA's black budget books on mind control, they're all connected.